we talk about Agentforce and the capabilities,
What's
you
your
never
view
liked
on-
humans, to be honest.
No,
So
computers are easy.
Life is easier.
there are a lot of people on LinkedIn who like are very negative about Agentforce, and I think they're all wrong, to be honest. Talking to you guys.
This is going to make a great
So,
clip.
so I think that
And I literally, for a second, felt like someone cut one of my limbs off. I was just like, how am I going to finish this article? Like, which is a bit worrying how reliant I'm becoming on it as a tool. But hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first Fireside chat, a new series at Salesforce Ben where we speak to interesting ISVs around the ecosystem. And today we are speaking to Elements.cloud. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be speaking about Agentforce, architects implementing Agentforce, and generally how architects need to think about this new technology. It's been around for a while now, and we kind of keep being told, this is the thing, this is the next big thing, this is going to change everything. We've kind of gone through the kind of GPT era that was super interesting, but now we are moving very quickly into the agent era, and especially Salesforce have literally placed all their bets on going into the agent era. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, practical implementation advice for architects and generally what people in the sales ecosystem need to know about Agentforce. So let's get started with introductions. Jack.
Thank you very much. So Jack Lavous, CIO at Elements.cloud. Been with the company now for just over 7 years. Started off as a Salesforce admin through the BA route and then into the more operational IT side. In terms of the AI, using it every day in my everyday job.
What are you using specifically?
ChatGPT, custom GPTs. I think from my role internally, it's more. It sounds a bit strange, but the hiring and firing of digital labour. I'll come on to that more in a moment when we go through the chat. But that's pretty much my role.
What's
you
your
never
view
liked
on-
humans, to be honest.
No, computers are easy.
Life is easier. What's your view on like custom GPTs? Because obviously everyone was creating custom GPTs like when they came out, but I actually haven't heard much at all about them since.
So we've probably got 4 or 5 at the moment internally that we're using. So I know, Xavery, you're a massive user of them, aren't you, in terms of creating solution guides, presentations. So in terms of productivity and saving time, that's mainly where we're using them internally. The custom GPT stuff.
When the custom GPT era kind of emerged, I created a bunch of them, and I think custom GPTs are very simple agents. So I have a few which connect to some of our systems to do like one particular task, right? So like I'll brainstorm with it some solution guide or some article, and then I'll publish it to our knowledge library or something like that, or something. One of the things I've realized in the last 2 months actually is when you have code interpreter turn on as a feature, it can read code. It can also then generate PowerPoint slides. But if you give it a PowerPoint slide deck of your own, it can use it. So you use your branded one and fill it out. So I'm using it now to create slide decks more quickly. So yeah, little enhancements like that.
And I mean, give us a formal introductory, Xavery, to your role at Elements.cloud and your relationship with AI as well.
Me and Jack started roughly at the same time. I've been at Elements for 8 years. We both started when the office was this little shed at the farm.
Cows would stick their heads in.
Cows were sticking their heads out. It was one day when the cows ran away, and it was 5 p.m. Sunny. We were tired. I remember the cow went through the window. And we were like, "Are we hallucinating?" He was like, "Did you see a cow?"
Anyway, what this podcast is about now.
But I'm Chief Product Officer at Elements. I started similarly to Jack in a much junior role as a junior product manager, and just as years went by, kind of went up. I don't know how to measure how my productivity has changed with AI, but I have this gut feeling that I at least 3 or 5x'd how much stuff I'm able to do in any given week. I have 7 or 8 custom GPTs I use. So a couple of them are shared, as the ones that Jack mentioned are shared across the team, but some of them are kind of my personal ones. I use a lot of our own elements built-in AI for like process mapping, story generation, just to speed things up. A bit of Agentforce for a few agents we've built. You've built. I didn't touch them. I think that's.
Yeah, I think to sum up Xavery's relationship with AI from an outsider looking in, I remember 6 months ago, he came up to me in the office and said, I could probably work a 4-day week. So I was like, well, okay. So yeah, big
Nice.
user of AI.
I do use it a lot for content writing,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
for the actual writing, but for
Yeah.
the research and da-da-da. And I was in the middle of an article and it broke for some reason. It wouldn't let me log in. It gave me this weird error. And I literally, for a second, felt like someone cut one of my limbs off. I was just like, how am I going to finish this article? Like, which is a bit worrying how reliant I'm becoming on it as a tool. But it is great. So before we go into kind of practical advice for architects and how people need to think about implementations, let's talk a bit about the challenges with Agentforce. Coming to you, Jack, are we actually seeing any meaningful impact from agents as of yet?
Yes is the short answer. I think from the work we've been doing at Elements, but also the level of consulting we've been given externally, we're definitely seeing a pattern where we see the most productivity, where you need to start strategically thinking about an agent as digital labor. So it's someone who is part of your team. And the way we're going about it internally is very much, we have this agent, what do we want that agent to do in terms of, if we were to hire a new employee, a physical human employee internally, they tend to have tasks or a process they need to follow. So, any given day, go and do this task. If you complete that, go and do this. And that's basically how we're thinking about agents, is we're bringing them in internally as employees, and we're giving them process and of what we want them to do in a business context. So we're definitely seeing productivity. There's challenges out there where we're talking to organisations where basically it's that they're finding it harder, because the thing with Agentforce in particular is it's not plug and play. So if you're dropping Agentforce into a messy environment, so a messy org, overloaded automations, it can be quite a challenge. But then that becomes a implementation problem, not a product problem. So we're definitely seeing productivity internally.
I completely agree with Jack here. I think we can get into that. There are a lot of people on LinkedIn who are very negative about Agentforce, and I think they're all wrong, to be honest. Talking to you guys.
This is going to make a great clip.
So I think the product, the capability, the technology is ready. The issue is, to your point, the implementation. I remember when ChatGPT first dropped, and you probably remember this as well, where you would show it to someone, and they would type in a question in a kind of like they do with Google, and they would come up with an answer which wouldn't be ideal, and they would like, oh, it doesn't work. I don't like it. And you go, it's a chat, it's conversational. That's not how it works. You need to write a bit more than just, what is X, for instance. But so it was not that technology, obviously the models have progressed, but it wasn't that the technology or the model was wrong. It's rather the way of interacting with that software was so completely new, whilst simple, and now everyone pretty much knows how to do it. It was so unlike anything else we've done that many people were struggling. And I think that on a much larger scale, we're seeing this same, not just with Agentforce, by the way, because I've read that with Microsoft Copilot, they face the same issues. Even with N28 to a degree, this other agentic platform, that it's actually simple in many ways, much simpler than, I would say, coding or even doing flows in many respects. But it's so different, and there's so many other patterns and anti-patterns and best practices that we are yet to discover or discovering that's what makes it challenging.
For me, it's just it's giving the agent structure. It's giving the agent natural instructions that it can understand to go and do a task. Once you've got the structure and the instructions, it's pretty simple, to be honest.
Let's talk a bit about the actual product then, Agentforce. You said quite boldly that you think all those people on social are wrong, and I think a lot of people probably aren't speaking from experience. There's a lot of kind of just emotional reaction to, from what I've heard, the product isn't perfect. It's kind of classic Salesforce. They release something, they get feedback, they iterate very quickly. Data Cloud wasn't great when it came out, but very quickly it became a kind of top tier CDP. So, kind of what's your kind of honest thoughts about Agentforce and the features within it?
I'm gonna not as brash as Xavery, but I think in terms of is Agentforce ready, I'm sitting going yes and no. Again, I think from the perspective of Salesforce have built a very powerful, scalable, agentic platform. But I'm going to keep using that word of think about it as strategic digital labor. As soon as you start thinking about it in that concept, thinking about the jobs to be done, what does that agent need to do? You're giving it the structure, you're giving it the understanding in the business context of the task or task it needs to perform. It's ready. The issue is, again, when you're dropping it into a messy org, there are challenges. And again, on LinkedIn, you're seeing people, they're getting not confused, but Agentforce is not another automation tool. If you think about it as another automation tool, again, you're going to struggle with the implementation. So Agentforce is ready as a product to a degree, but it's just how you approach it from a structure and digital labor perspective is my kind of thoughts around it.
So to add on top of what Jack was saying, when we talk about Agentforce and the capabilities, I actually think, so another brush statement, I personally don't like conversational agents. I know it's all the rage and a lot of people, a lot of products, just pretty much every startup in the last 5 years is trying to do some
standard kind of customer support.
Conversational agents are great, but for a particular type of task. And I think one of the things I've seen in the ecosystem, not just Salesforce ecosystem, not just with how Agentforce is presented, but even with pretty much any startup in the last 2 or 3 years that has emerged, being all AI first, they're plastering conversational agents everywhere for everything. And the issue is conversational agents are rather difficult to design well because you need to account for a lot of variability. And they're not great for most use cases. Now, one of the, I think, super powerful features of the Agentforce product or platform, let's say, that is actually not being talked about as much or promoted as much is the fact that you can invoke prompt templates from Flows and Apex.
Yep.
That, to me, is where almost, I want to say where all the power is, but that to me is the most the easier to implement and very high ROI application of Agentforce, not conversational agents, because there are so many tasks around your CRM, around Salesforce, from sales, customer success, marketing, pretty much every business function that touches Salesforce, where if you could only now still use your automations, but now take some unstructured data, analyze it, and then that summary, that information, log it in some structured way on your records. Oh my God, you would save so much time for so many people, and you would see so much ROI. And conversational agents are like a different beast, and that's I think part of the problem we're seeing with Agentforce is there was this focus on implementing conversational agents. It's almost like let's start from the hardest thing possible.
Yeah, well,
and then
I kind of agree.
Kind of, okay, go ahead.
Because I think the conversational agent, when Agentforce was first released, we were being told it's all about natural language, right? So a lot of the conversational use cases, they weren't particularly complex. So take, for example, when we first started, we went very conversational heavy. So it's having a conversation with an agent.
What's an example of a task you would try and do while having a conversation? I just want to compare
of course.
To the prompt templates.
Yeah, so we're using an agent internally where an end user can basically go into the platform and start to have a conversation with the agent about booking a holiday. So we previously had a bunch of screen flows on a custom object where a user would go in, type in their vacation name, choose the date, and send it off for an approval process. So we highlighted that very early on as an agentic opportunity, and it was part of our playing, really, if you like. So what we've then now done is through conversational and through building the agent in Agentforce, so a topic, we've got a book a vacation, we've got 4 or 5 actions where it goes and checks if the user has enough holiday days remaining. So it's doing all of that governance and policy from a HR perspective behind the scenes. Yep. And then the user will go and book the vacation. So you'd have a conversation with it, it would check if it's a weekday, if it's a bank holiday, it would suggest other dates.
Is your point of view that you're saying that it's unnecessary and it can be done quicker?
I think a lot of the conversational use cases you could probably do using the standard automation in Salesforce.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we took a screen flow and basically turned it into an agent.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where you were going. Okay.
So that experience, that agent that Jack has talked about, we were also on that, we are still, like anyone else, on the journey of learning Agentforce in particular, but in general, where and how to apply agents. One of the things that we actually will be launching is what I'm calling an agent finder. So how we can analyze your business processes, also those in your org, and highlight where agent capability could be applied, but with differentiation of whether this should be a conversational agent or an AI workflow and why. And I'll give you an example because actually this was the very first agent you guys built, and it was very necessary for us to get that experience. And I think you guys also wanted to choose a process which was low risk, right? If it doesn't work, just that nothing really happens.
Because we had the other automations.
And you built many agents since, and I was wondering, looking at you guys' work, also looking at the automations we've built internally in the product was, so why is it that some of those agents seem really great and others, even when they're working, like the holiday agent is working, but it doesn't necessarily seem that great. The screen flow just seems so much better, the ones we had before. It's faster. And one of the things we figured out was you need to look at, whenever you, and that's one of the things coming back to implementation where people struggle with, is finding a good use case, but then understanding and analyzing that use case. For every use case, you need to think about what is the trigger, what data is required, what is the type of reasoning involved, and what is the expected output. Now, the booking a vacation one is quite interesting. The trigger, right, is dependent on human, is variable to a degree. It can be started by conversation, it can be started with a click of a button. The data is very structured because all you need is a start date, the end date, or how many days have taken. It's a very structured information you're going after. Reasoning is completely deterministic. You know, do you have vacations left? Don't you have vacations left? Who's your line manager? Who do we send this request to approve to? And the outcome is actually you just create a record for someone to approve, right? So it's completely deterministic. That's why even though we built a working agent, he built a working agent, we realized actually the screen flow was and continues to be much better for this task because it's very deterministic processing. You guys built another agent for sales coaching. That one is way better as a conversational agent because the trigger is again variable. So it depends on when the particular sales rep has time to review their particular calls. You cannot expect that. There is a conversational aspect to it. There's too much to be done to be performed as a simple action. The outcome you're looking for is not necessarily any database operation or notification. It's training. It's education. So it needs to go back to the user. So the output is better served in a conversation. So the point being is that there are certain patterns of what type of activities and with what type of data and reasoning are best suited for conversational versus AI workflows.
Yeah, it's great to make that differentiation because I'm sure people are searching for use cases at the moment, but it's important to know what not to do as much as what to do because you might find a use case, get all excited, and actually it's just way easiest to use Apex Flow or just before we move on to kind of the new section about implementing Agentforce and specifically for architects, are there any other kind of problems with Agentforce adoption or implementations that you see at the moment?
So we took a step back. We started designing the process. Again, coming back to this digital labor, it's what do we want our agent to do from a job to be done perspective. And what we're seeing out there in some organizations is they have absolutely fantastic use cases, but they're just diving straight into Agent Builder and they're going through this iterative journey. They're getting lost. Their agents aren't working. So take a step back, look at your design. What are you trying to build? And then build that thing right to then get to achievable digital labor.
So to pick up that thread from Jack, the thing that we're seeing with our customers and any customers we're doing any consulting work with, instructions is where most agents fail. It's not the actions that they have access to. It's not even the scope of the topic. It's how the instructions are written, and it's quite interesting because for Apex, right, you have a particular syntax, patterns, anti-patterns of what to do and what not to do, which most people know. You have those for flows. And that comes back to people still learning this technology, you're given the box for whatever you want and just write. It's natural language. And you would think, well, we use natural language. I'm using natural language right now.
I remember,
should be simple.
I remember sitting there when I
What
first
do I
went into
put
Agent and what on earth do I put into this box?
And we have seen some absolutely horrendous instructions. It's very interesting. It's because people approach this. Oh, I'm just going to write human language.
Yeah.
It sounds very weird to say as a human. I'm gonna write, as opposed to what? Right. But anyway, we're going to write it in natural language. But then what gets written is contradictory.
Yeah.
And there are actually, funny thing, there are a lot of, not even best practices, just absolute patterns and anti-patterns of how you talk to AI. For instance, you do not give negative instructions that much. If you must never do something, fair enough. But if you have, we've seen some instructions.
I mean, we've been through it.
Yes, half instructions are, you must never do this. No, don't do that, don't do this. So agent goes like, okay, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. So what do I do? We can get over that in more detail. But
It's changing one word. So we have a book of vacations, the HR policy topic. We uploaded all of our HR policies into the knowledge library so the agent can go find the right information based on the question asked. And part of our instruction was if somebody from Canada goes and asks a question about how many days vacation do I have, they have to use the US policy because we don't have a Canadian policy. So as part of the instruction, we said they must use the US policy, not our US policy. So what the agent actually went and did was it went online and found a bunch of US policies around vacation. We changed the word the to our, and suddenly the agent was working.
Yeah. Oh well.
So it can be that minuscule.
So the main kind of crux of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is architecting solutions and how architects can think about Agentforce implementations. And as you've been talking about, there's a lot of mistakes, easy mistakes to make. This is new technology, but I kind of hear different things about architecting, implementing Agentforce, because Salesforce kind of make it seem like it's very easy, it's point and click, it's declarative. I even interviewed Mark Benioff on our podcast, and he said this is an agent Blazer first product.
Right.
But then when I've spoken to people who've actually implemented it, they've said the skills that you need are wildly different. I heard about red teaming the other day, testing agents to make sure it doesn't swear or say anything bad, or, and a lot of the concepts you have been talking about are quite foreign to probably a Salesforce admin, Salesforce architect who hasn't looked at this before. Would you say that's quite a good summary of Agentforce implementations?
I'd say so, yeah. I think, again, so we started on the journey at basically the same level that most people come into Agentforce. From an architecture perspective, it's very much, I've reiterated it, but it's stepping back and thinking about design, because what we found early on is we had one agent, and we had I had people around the business coming to me going, well, this is a great idea for a topic. It'd be brilliant if we could do this. And it's time to step back and go, okay, so if I have one agent and arguably 6 topics, how do I want to design those topics? So the classification, the scopes, when the reasoning engine comes in, the agent's not getting confused. And then you add in multi-agent landscapes, which is coming. So what we basically did was we came up with this methodology of something called an agent interaction map. And it helps you start to think about and architect and draw in Elements how your agent is going to interact with your topics. So basically level 1 of the aim is you've got a small process. So what is the agent actually doing to get to its topic? So user provides input, a conversation. Agent then has a plan to go and, okay, so as part of that input from the user, how can I go and find the right topic using the reasoning engine, so the classification and scope. So we're actually starting to design that on this particular architecture map. It then goes and finds a topic, and then underneath that topic box, you've then got your agent instruction diagram. So in terms of architecture, it's taking a step back and thinking about design. Because as soon as you go straight into Agent Builder, you're just going to go through a horrible iterative cycle. Yeah. It's all about your architecture and design up front.
And I think you're actually the father of agent interaction map. I remember when you guys were building these early agents. We guys had an issue where it was choosing the wrong topic sometimes.
Yeah.
And we stepped back, we mapped out what topics we have, and we realized, oh, hold on a second, the name, the scope, the description of these two is remarkably similar.
Yeah.
They do different things, like booking and cancelling a vacation, but actually they sound very similar.
Yeah.
And no wonder that agent is sometimes choosing one, sometimes choosing the other. To add to what Jack just said, so we have just launched a free offering for Salesforce ecosystem called Agent Designer to help people actually architect good, reliable agents. The other thing we've also added is agent instruction diagrams. And think of it this way, just like we had flowcharts to design our deterministic automations for years. I mean, Flow is pretty much a live flowchart to code kind of tool, if you think about it.
Yeah.
For designing instructions that actually follow all the prompt engineering best practices, of which there are many, you need a new notation and a new way of thinking. So that's what we've launched, fundamentally instruction design diagram.
How does that? What form does that take? Is that like a downloadable pack people can?
No, you just sign up to a product for free. It's a diagramming tool.
Oh, it's a product. It's an actual product. Okay.
Yeah, but you diagram with the predefined shapes of which guide you through when to use an action, when to use a prompt template, when to use agent reasoning. There is an auto corrections of if your instructions are not following general best practices, and ability to then turn that diagram into instructions for your agent. Yeah. Because to Jack's point, the two biggest issues with architecting agents is the topics and how you scope the topics and how you make sure that your agent knows which topic to choose when. Yeah. And the only way you can control that is by making sure these topics are defined very uniquely. Exactly. And then designing the instructions in a sensible way. It's the instructions, not the flows, it's not the actions that are failing. It's instructing the agent when to use what. That is where people fail.
I'd sum it up with 3 words. It's basically design, build, and govern. So the architecture side is designing. So it's again the process you want your agent to go through, which is your agent instruction diagram. You then take those instructions that you've produced from that diagram, put them into Agent Builder. You test inside Agent Builder. If for whatever reason your instruction isn't working or your agent isn't behaving as you want, a lot of customers we've been speaking to, they're going straight into Agent Builder and just changing the instructions in the box. Suddenly you have no governance. So your agent governance goes out the window. So what we're basically saying is go into Agent Builder, test it. If your instructions aren't working, go back to your process diagram, make the change there, regenerate your instructions, bring it back into Agent Builder, and then suddenly you've got that governance cycle. Because every time you make a change, we're capturing that inside the designer tool.
You asked. You started with asking, for architecting on Agentforce. But one thing I would like to point to everyone listening is, Agentforce is not particularly unique in the sense that the principles of how the agent architecture is supported is not that it's unique to Salesforce, but the concepts are the same as pretty much everywhere else. And the same
agentic platforms.
Yes, exactly. So the principles and the skills you need to operate on Agentforce are exactly the same skills you need to operate any other agent on any other platform. It's not like writing instructions is all of a sudden easier or different on any other platform. It's not a problem unique to Agentforce. It's you need to learn how to design your agents. With all these topics and how you design instructions. That's a skill.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And something that we spoke about before we're having this chat today is the org process agent approach that Elements have come up with. So can you give us a little bit of insight into what that is and how it can help people architect solutions?
Well, absolutely. So fundamentally, that org to process to Agentforce journey is 2 our new kind of flagship capabilities combined. One of them is what we call Salesforce configuration mining. So after 8 years of mining dependencies, permissions, and metadata information from Salesforce orgs, we've gotten to a point where we have enough granular information about how everything works, how everything is connected, what triggers when, what reads or writes, what creates, that fundamentally, in short, we are able with almost a click of a button, or actually with a simple sentence from a user, like, I would like to understand how we manage commissions, for instance. Interpret that request, ask people kind of a few follow-up questions, and within a few minutes we generate a business process diagram that represents how your org is configured to support that process today, right? So with all the tech debt, with all the actions and flows you might have forgotten about, with all the over provisioning, with all the validation rules, how this has been configured to work. So that gives you an accurate as-is view of how your org is configured. And the funny story is, when we were testing it internally, Jack and his team design and diagram out every capability we do, but even we lose track of how little iterative improvements just change the landscape ever so slightly. Remember when I showed you how our opportunity process actually looks like versus what we designed it last time, it was like, hold on a second.
That's not how it works.
And I was like, no, it is how it works. Because we didn't know X, Y, and Z.
There are companies who are much, much bigger than you guys out there using Salesforce.
Exactly. So I think what's really important to add about the org to process, the configuration mining to agent, is that you the whole point of the Agentforce Designer product is to give people the confidence to go and start building agents now. You don't need to do the org to process stuff to identify agentic opportunities. So the Agentforce Designer, if you want to go and start designing agents, you can do that now through the free Agentforce Designer. But the where the org to process configuration mining comes into its own, as I said at the very beginning, is people have messy orgs. So to try and find agentic opportunities in orgs that are overloaded with automations, tech debt, poor data, that's suddenly where that org to process can actually start to help you identify those opportunities. But you can get going with confidence using the designer.
So there are, I think, two types of agent applications. One's where, and I know this is going to be very controversial, you don't need super clean data. You could deploy agents to help you get clean data, right? So if you're struggling, like great example, sales reps, right? I haven't seen or haven't heard of any org where sales reps document why opportunity was closed lost in any sensible way. Well, because it's closed lost, out of mind, out of sight. Let's focus on something I can win, right? So that's not usually source of great data for the business to figure out why we, for instance, losing opportunities or are there any trends. But you could have an agent, right, which or AI automation, which reads the transcripts, the emails between a sales rep and the customer, and auto-populates on closed lost what was the reason in a succinct but more richer manner, and you will have better data as a result. So there are some cases, right, where you can build an agent. Your org doesn't have to be perfect, and the free agent designer would do that. There are other use cases where, unless you have clean data, using AI for any more, let's say, advanced use cases is not going to fly. And then using configuration mining to figure out, for instance, what are the roots of data corruption. It's you can clean up your data using some automated tools from time to time, but where is the corruption coming from? Funny story on that. Remember when we were looking at the generated process of our opportunity management from the org, you said, well, why is it that half the business can create opportunities by the looks of it? Because in our manual process, it's only account managers. And I said, well, because all the profiles and permissions give everyone access. And he said, no, they're not. And I said, well, I just created this opportunity 5 minutes ago using the screen file that apparently I don't have access to. So now please delete it before Kate, our CFO, finds out, right? So that's as an example. The other part, so one thing of process Salesforce configuration mining or process configuration mining is, you now see your processes as they really are, all the over provisioning, all the 20 different ways to create a record, all the ways that it's broken, and you can now very quickly identify how to clean it up, how to make it better. The other thing that we are launching, ability to scan through that process, and what we were talking about a bit earlier, look at patterns of activity. What are the triggers? What are the inputs? What sort of data is implied or necessary to perform each step in that process? What is the expected outcome? And make a determination of, this could probably be accelerated with an AI workflow, like some sort of flow and prompt template combination. Here is why. Hey, look at that step. That could be really solve with conversational agent. So something which allows you to find real practical agent use cases or AI use cases in general within your existing processes. So that's kind of the whole org to process to Agentforce.
It's giving the people the confidence to be able to go in and start, because again, that's what we're seeing with customer conversations is, where do I start?
Yeah.
Because it's the risk. So
What do I start? Also, what do I use it for?
Exactly.
Because the technology is still so new to many people. It's like, okay, AI, okay, I can write a poem, I can create some marketing stuff, but what else, right? And that what else is actually quite challenging.
And the designer in the org to process will give you that confidence, because you have that architecture and you understand it all the way through. So.
Yeah, it's filling a huge
Exactly.
gap, I think.
Yeah.
Mark Benioff and yourselves have spoken a lot about digital labor kind of throughout over the past few months and this conversation. Are we going to see a kind of, human agent, along with the hybrid roles in the future? Because it's very, people are just started learning about agents, and then we're being told by kind of Mark Benioff that, digital labor is coming and it's a whatever $4 trillion market or something. Is this something that's realistically going to happen?
So I can only speak for what we're doing internally. So I think we're already there as a business. So a month ago, part of my role as CIO is basically managing our digital labor. So we've added them into our org chart. So agents have managers who are human managers. We do 90-day reviews on agents. So the manager, their job is to effectively review the agent. Is it still hitting the business context? Is it still helping? If it's not helping, we go through a firing process, i.e. switching it off, or part of the review is, do we need to change it? Again, we come back to the agent instruction diagram. So internally, we're effectively already there. So we're managing digital labor as if they're part of our team. It's like having an agent sat next to you, basically, is how we're viewing it. So yeah, all of our documentation, HR processes all include agents. Wow. So we're going through, Xavery comes up with an idea for an agent, he'll come to me, I write a job spec. We're going that deep into the level of HR with agents. And then we'll go through the review, how do we build it, agent designer, the architecture, go through that design, build, govern framework, and then we have a working digital employee. So we're already there. For the market, Xavery's probably better to answer that question.
Well, I think when we talk, the analogy of digital labor, I think has two. You can interpret in two ways. One is very like Jack just reiterated very very literally that yes, we now have job functions which like 2-3 years ago we would if they were painful enough in terms of we're not doing it, should be doing it, or it's very painful to do, or we don't have time to do it, we would have thought about hiring someone. Yeah. And now it's almost, can we AI it first? Yeah. And if we can't AI it, then hire it. So it's almost that.
Well, we joked about the product marketing.
Yeah.
So we were looking to hire somebody in product marketing, and me and Xavery turned around to Adrian, one of the founders, and said we could probably 90% of this do with AI. And suddenly we're now building this content management system using Bolt and other applications. Wow. So it's part of it.
So that definitely has happened. But the other way, and comes back to thinking about the design, the architecture design of the agents, it's very useful to really think about agents as digital labor. Why? Because we are surprised, actually. A lot of people still think of agents or AI as this magical box that just kind of automatically it's switched on and it knows everything about your org, knows everything about your business, and it's just perfect at doing everything. And why is it not working? And we're going, well, and it's the analogy we sometimes use. It's, imagine you're hiring an intern or a junior analyst, or actually even for senior role, you wouldn't just say, welcome.
There we go.
There you go.
Off you go.
Off you go. And start doing some work, right? You wouldn't do that. With humans, if you don't have good, and the HR analogy works very well here, if you don't have good onboarding or training processes, a lot of how it looks in many organizations, you just follow this guy for the next 3 months, just do what they do, and and you'll do fine, right? But agents don't work that way. You can't just deploy an agent and say, okay, follow the sales rep, and in 3 months after you've observed, no. You have to give them everything up front. It's almost like saying, welcome through the, someone comes through the front door and go, welcome, here's your process, here's your job spec, here is the do's and no-nos, here's some best practices, off you go, right? And that's actually very scary to do it with a human.
Yeah.
We don't do that with a human, but we have to do it with an agent.
Yeah.
So that's why it's if you adopt this digital labor mentality and perspective, you go, oh, okay, I really need to instruct it to that level of detail as I would
Exactly.
a human.
And suddenly
person.
you understand the job that the agent needs to do, and then you can give the agent that business context, and suddenly you have a working digital employee.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's very, very interesting to view it like that, literally with like HR documentation and firing an agent reviewing, you know, providing them with their performance review.
Exactly.
And we're nearing the end of our conversation now, and it's been super interesting, and I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people. But, you know, where can architects or Salesforce professionals, anyone listening to this, go from here? You know, what is the kind of next step for them, especially with the people that haven't really started their agent journey yet?
A good place to start would be to sign up for Agent Designer, our free product. And the reason is it's probably the only place where you can learn the architecture, how to architect your agents, both at the high-level agent level and more specifically how to design your instructions. Not only are we providing this very purpose-built for instructions notation, but we're also doing, for free again, AI assistance highlighting how your instructions could be improved. Oh, you have a hard-coded reference to the flow. That's a no-no. That's not how it works. Oh, you're not semantically consistent here. Change that. That's a negative. And if anything, that will help you learn how to interact and how to instruct agents. Obviously, you know, starting up with a trailhead or agent head or whatever it's called.
Agent head. Trailhead.
Trailhead or for Agentforce to test it out is, you know, a good place to get your hands on with the technology.
I think from a more hands-on experience, I remember being very overwhelmed at the start. Even with 5 to 7 years experience as an admin and a BA, I was very overwhelmed with. I had a load of use cases land on my desk because people in the business were at Dreamforce. They were trying to, you know, agentify some of their areas. This is an exciting thing. It's taking those use cases and almost. I didn't have a whiteboard session as such, but I documented those use cases against our Agentforce methodology. And then it's very much sitting through those use cases, interviewing your stakeholders. Where can I get the most ROI out of these use cases? Risk is a big thing as well. So as we spoke about the book of vacation, we went low risk to start with. We already had processes and automation working. And again, with customers we're speaking to, it's very much risk is something in their head because a lot of them are slightly worried about putting an agent on an external site because they don't know how this agent's going to react. So again, think about internally first and then think about your risk is kind of how I'd approach it.
Yeah, employee agent first,
Exactly, and then use the resources available.
I got told internal first, then human in the loop, then fully autonomous.
Yeah, that's probably the best advice. You should be sat here.
I don't think so. Cool. All right.
Excellent.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Yeah,
Thanks
this
for
is
having
a super useful conversation, and speak to you soon.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.